All right, so if you remember from our last video, we added on to our dog class, or our dog blueprint, a method, not a new method, but a method. And in this method, the method is going to receive a object, a unique object, in our case, a unique dog. And because it's receiving a unique object, therefore it knows that unique object's name. It also knows that unique object's weight. And how did it know what object was being received? Well, automatically we saw that when we created a dog, remember that every dog that we created, every object that we create automatically gets these variable names and automatically gets this method. And it turns out that when we call methods of the class, methods that were from the class that it was created from, the instance or that dog object is automatically sent to this parameter. Whether we want to or not, it automatically happens, so we have to put a parameter here to catch that. So every method that we create has to at least have, we use the word self because it's kind of standard, so I put the word self here, which is catching this object. So that way it knows whether dog 2 called this method or whether dog 1 called this method. And based on whichever dog called this method, it knows which doggy name to print or which weight to print. All right, so we're going to take this a step further. If you remember in the PowerPoint, we talked about the fact that part of the reason why we want to create a class was in the case of our beauty parlor or our grooming service. I think it was Patsy's Parlor. I can't remember what he called it. Anyway, so we had the fact that she had boarding services and she also had grooming services. So I've created a file called groomingexample.py, and this file was spelled incorrectly, but the attempt was boardingexample.py. So this code is specific, or should be specific, to if we're writing code for the boarding services portion of her business, or this file will be unique to the grooming portion of the logic, will be specific to the grooming portion. But whether we're boarding or we're grooming, a dog is a dog. And so rather than recreating the dog in each of these files, we want both of these files to create dogs from the same blueprint. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of this code out, and I'm going to put it into this file that I've called dogclass.py. And the idea here is that both of these files will be able to look into my dogclass.py to find this blueprint. And so they'll each create the same type of dogs in both files without having to recreate the wheel. They'll simply look in this file kind of as the master blueprint, the master file. How should I create a dog? Well, this is how you can create a dog. So it's reusable and we can send it to different files. Also, it'd be easy to maintain if we needed to add another value. Maybe we also wanted age. I think that was an example in the PowerPoint. So if we did self doggy age equals age, now all of our dogs have access to this property and we don't have to rewrite them in both of these files. So from a maintenance standpoint, from a reusability standpoint, this is why we like this idea of using objects. All right, so I'm going to go back to where we were. Fantastic. So if I run this code now, if I run this file, let's see what happens. Oh, what is the dog's name? Fluffy. And the weight is 20 pounds. And oh, I got an error. Well, it's saying that name is not defined. Well, that's because the way we have it set up, our idea was that we're going to pull from this file, but at the moment, boardingexample.py has no idea what, it doesn't know what a capital dog is. And so we're getting this error message. So what we need to do, and we've seen this before, we're going to use this word import. So what we're going to say is from, and the name of the file that you want to get to share or that you want to get your class from. In this case, it's dogclass.py. So we're going to leave off the py. So from dog class import asterisk, which is a way of saying I want you to go look at this dog class.py file, and everything that's in it, I want access to it. So if we add more to this file, we'll have access to all of it. So now if we run this file, my dog's name is Fluffy, and Fluffy is she's gained weight. She's 22 pounds now. You can see that we don't get the error now because this file knows how to find it. So for the grooming example then, maybe let's also do that same import. And so now if we're creating some kind of logic here in the grooming file, for now we'll just keep it simple. I'll say dog1 equals, and maybe I'm just going to hard code in some things. So dog1, notice I can use dog1 because this logic is completely different from this logic. So the only code that we're getting, the only file we're accessing is this file that has our class description in it. So we can call this dog1 too, and it doesn't interfere with this file at all because grooming example can't see boarding example. It only sees the code that's in this dog class file. So we can create a new dog with a capital DOG. And remember, we have to send over a name and weight. You can see our little shortcut here says you need a name and a weight. So maybe this dog's name is Bruno. And we will say Bruno's a big dog, 150 pounds. And so now when we can call this display dog info, and it dog1.display dog info. We don't have to send it anything because all it's receiving is self, and we know that dog1 is automatically going to be sent over for us. So if I save this and run it, you'll see Bruno and 150. So much easier way to start creating dogs here if we run it from a blueprint, as opposed to having to create multiple, for each file we have to recreate the wheel, so to speak. We're just getting it all from some blueprint that's already defined for us. So hopefully this is a way for you to start seeing the value of objects and how we're going to start looking at when we do programming, rather than looking at things one by one by one. And object-oriented programming, or line by line by line is what I meant to say. And object-oriented programming, what we start to look at is all of our data is actually an object. And so we're going to start seeing an object-oriented programming in your next language. Next semester, you'll start seeing much more how to utilize objects rather than creating, as we've done in the past, this procedural type of coding.